Thank you, Ira. And now we're going to hear from Odile Hugonot Haber, who has worked for 30 years as a registered nurse in the U.S. and has been a national delegate for the California Nurses Association. In the early 1980s, she started the Rank and File Center in San Francisco to work on issues of peace and union activism. She initiated Women in Black Vigils in the Bay Area and served on the board of New Jewish Agenda. She is co-chair of the Middle East Committee of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, which created a statement in favor of a Middle East weapons of mass destruction-free zone, which she presented at the Nuclear Abolition Caucus. She's the current program chair of WILF US. Odile, thank you.
That's okay. I think the picture is very dark. When we learn about all those things, it's overwhelming. It's dark, and when we hear story from Kathy Kelly from the war zone, it's even darker there. And it's hard to overcome the depression that overcomes us. We have to learn how to move into action. And so in order to sustain myself, to move into action, I look at what are the developments that are positive on Earth. And one of the developments that I learned after 9/11 was that many of the young people are moving into permaculture communities, a way of developing agriculture that's a permanent, sustainable form, and also of sharing resources and creating communities. That gave me hope. The second development that gave me hope was the development of nuclear-free zone all over this planet. And there is now about 56% of the Earth that's under the control of nuclear-free zone. And to think that there cannot be nuclear weapon made, maintained, sold, or transported in those zones gives me hope that if some nuclear accident happens, maybe those zones will be a place where humanity can survive. So I'm looking at those zones, and then I heard that there were a development of a Middle East nuclear-free zone in the Middle East that was talking about it. And we all know that the Middle East is a very crisis area, and that crisis in the Middle East could develop in superpower global war easily. And so I try to support the development on this Middle East nuclear-free zone that became in 1990 a weapon of mass destruction-free zone under the advice of Mubarak, who was president of Egypt. The first people that spoke about this nuclear weapon-free zone were actually Iran and Egypt in 1963, so it's not a new development. And they brought it to the United Nations, and first Egypt had a 9-point resolution to speak about it in 63, and then in 74 they presented it to the General Assembly, and it was adopted by the General Assembly, except for 2 nations, and Israel was one of them. And but it has been passed in the 1980s constantly, even without a vote by the UN General Assembly. And it has continued, but with not too much happening around it. And then in 1990s, as I say, Mubarak changed it to a weapon of mass destruction-free zone, and that includes nuclear, biological weapon, and chemical weapon. And it's hard because there is no such a zone so far. So it's an hard example to lead with, but I think it can be done. And next is, I'm a little lost here, I'm sorry. So it's a very big and complex subject, and one can spend many hours studying it. But in 1995, the NPT was going to had to be renewed. And not seeing much any movement on this subject, then the Arab Nation League, which represent 22 nations, which are all part of the NPT, Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, then decided to put their foot down and said something has to happen or we're not going to renew the NPT. So they had to move into doing more. And at the General Assembly, they decided to give it some teeth. And they were going to have a conference, and they named a location, Helsinki. They named also a facilitator who was a Finnish man called Jack. Does anyone know his name? Jack Lajava. It's an ambassador, a Finnish ambassador. And he's been facilitating, trying to speak to all the Middle Eastern nations. And then the conference was going to be in 2012. And it was going to happen in December 2012. And just a month before the conference was going to take place, it was cancelled by Israel and the US. So, first of all, I want to speak about the role of the US, because last April was released a new document by the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability, which explains that the $1 trillion train wreck is money going to be spent by the US in building new nuclear weapons, smaller and minor. So we're going to spend $1 trillion rebuilding nuclear weapons. And it's important because even in the Middle East, the US is leading the march to this Armageddon or, complete annihilation war on Earth. So we have to learn about it, and we have to do something about that. The second thing is that in the Middle East, of course, the biggest arsenal is Israel. It has nuclear weapons, probably from 200 to 300 nuclear heads, and Israel is part of some of the talks that happened, and it went to Switzerland in Glen with the facilitator, and they also had, after the Madrid conference that happened in 1991, there were 14 years of talk. There were some with many nations of the Middle East. But the talk broke off because Egypt became too impatient. Egypt would like to see Israel join the NPT, of course, because Israel being the only nuclear arsenal in the Middle East, it can be done. But Israel wants security. And they want confidence and security building measure. The first time I heard the initial, I thought it was a new weapon, but it's not. It's a slow step in which all the nations of the Middle East will come together, and very slowly, by working together in security, would trust each other and build up to more security, and eventually some kind of agreement that there will not be any more nuclear weapons. But the process has been very, very long and fastidious. And the Arab nations do not trust Israel to come to an end that it needs to come by disarming and coming into a nuclear weapon. So they're becoming impatient, and something needed to be done. So some Israeli members and Israeli civilians invited us in 2013 in Haifa to come to a conference on nuclear weapons, saying if Israel doesn't come to Helsinki, then Helsinki is going to come to Israel. Israel is going to be in Helsinki. And amazingly, I learned that twice it was discussed in the Knesset the building of a Middle East weapon of mass destruction free zone was discussed twice in Israel. There is also an Israeli peace movement that's working on it. There is a woman called Sharon Dolev who come and speak in many such conferences and explain that she's trying to teach the Israeli public about the danger of nuclear weapon and is moving a grassroots movement. So we need to do that. That's the first condition that need to happen. More and more people need to come and act and do something about it. The second thing is that, yes, we need some mechanism. We need an agenda. So many organizations, professional organizations, come and try to build agenda and speak about what needs to be done for this to happen. We need to have mechanism for security, for transparency, for watching the whole process. And of course, Iran was a big fear because Iran has many nuclear power, and anyone who has nuclear power can use them to build weapons, nuclear weapons. So we have now, thanks to Obama, to the team, and to also the European team, we have a nuclear deal. So it's a very good moment right now to reawaken to this nuclear weapon of mass destruction free zone and start doing something about it. But unless we don't push for it and educate our community, nothing will happen. Nothing ever happens unless people move. And it's very important because so many of the women, I am is a physician in emergency, and I've been a nurse in emergency at the University of Michigan, and about 80% of the women that come are on antidepressants. And so it's very hard when you have depression to be moved, yet we have to speak up, we have to move our community. So, and I remember because I came into this movement because of Helen Caldicott. Helen Caldicott was a physician that spoke all over the U.S., and she, much more knowledgeable than me, but had fiery speech that reawakened people that we need to move onto this issue. And as emergency nurse, we say, what is the most important thing that needs to be done right now to save the humanity on Earth and the future of our children? So think about what is the most important thing and what needs to be done. Please move on this issue. Thank you very much.